University of Michigan, from the get-go, I think 2.5 years ago when we really started talking about AI, was really pushing the boundaries. And as a partner, Instructure, the makers of Canvas, if you're not familiar with the Instructure brand name, our goal was really to do everything we could to support their evolution and innovation. And so I'm going to let Dan lead off, and I might speak at the end, but it's mostly going to be Dan telling you about what they've done.
No pressure there. So I'm Dan Burgess. You might gather from the branding. I'm from the University of Michigan. So to get to brass tacks and make sure that I meet the goal that Kate has mentioned, we'll talk about what specifically we're doing at the University of Michigan. And I had to put this into a form that I could understand. I had to put it into, because it's moved so fast in some ways, and my perception of time is a bit distorted. I had to put this in a chronological order here to give you a sense of how things have developed over time and are continuing to develop. And let me add that the University of Michigan is very large, 19 schools and colleges. So what I'm talking, there's many flowers that are blooming as we speak right now. So what I'm talking about is what we're doing within central IT and in partnership with Instructure, and primarily within the context of the learning management system Canvas. So you have, it's a little hard for me to see exactly what year did I put. The first thing is the prompt literacy course. I think that was 2023. Did I put that down there? Am I passing my own? Can I understand my own slides? So in 2023, we, after November 2022, when you heard about ChatGPT, we had folks that were starting to play with that. And in particular, I want to give a shout out to Nick Gasper from our Flint campus, Director of Online Learning, who started to play with it and really saw the potential for it. And he just got overwhelmed so much with all these questions about, what is this? Tell me more about it. And asking, hearing for folks to come and talk to him, that he said, I'll just come up with a prompt literacy course and offer that out. And that is available. And at the end of our presentation, there's going to be a QR code to get you all the resources that we talk about for both for Instructure and for the University of Michigan.
And I will say, too, that prompt literacy course was actually the first one that I was aware of in the globe, and I've spent the last 2.5 years talking about AI since November 30th of 2022, and it really was the first one, and there was one for K-12 educators that was really shortly after the one for University of Educators, so truly front runners.
Yeah, prompts to kudos to Nick Gasper on that. He's really awesome. Then after that, you see UMGPT come. So UMGPT is, and this was the vision from our CIO, Ravi Penzi, who said, we want to have a LLM, a large language model, stood up and hosted by the university that's accessible in many different dimensions. So accessible, digitally accessible, right? So folks with assistive technologies can access it. Accessible that it doesn't cost faculty, students, or staff any money to be able to do that. Also that it was, that the data would be protected, that we would have privacy for that. So we didn't want that data being used to train models. We wanted faculty, students, and staff to be comfortable with using that environment. And so a considerable amount of investment was made to stand that up, and so you have UMGPT being stood up. Then folks started thinking, well, wouldn't it be nice to be able to take all of that learning content that we know that exists in the learning management system, that exists in Google Docs, and slide presentations all throughout these different data repositories in a way that could then be, the large language model could be directed towards that so that students could inquire on that content through, for lack of a better word, a chatbot. And so that's when you started seeing the emergence of the RAG, and I won't get too deep into the technical details, but the retrieval augmented generation, this ability to say, this is the corpus that I want you to be able to, large language model, AI, generative AI, to be able to draw from, and I want to be able to add boundaries around how I want you to respond to inquiries from this. And this is when we stood up Maisie. And so Maisie has different facets to it, but one of the within the context that we're talking about with Canvas, what Maisie allows us to do is an instructor can say, I want all of the content in my Canvas course to be available to a chatbot. And I want, in this chatbot, I want this chatbot to respond to the inquiries according to parameters that I set. So maybe I want a tutor, and this is a really innovative approach. One of our faculty members from our Ross School of Business, Andrew Wu, I think he is here at the event this week. If you have a chance to seek him out, and we have videos that he's done on the resources that we link to. It's really fascinating. He shows you how you can use My Maisie to set up your own tutor for your classroom. Right, and so you can set the prompt ahead of time. You know, this is how I want you to respond to inquiries from students, and this is what I want you to draw from for the content for that corpus. And so then that's been made available, and then now instructors can go ahead and turn that on. And then we find that as these things are let out into the wild, is that folks start using them in ways that you didn't imagine. And so we're seeing the use, proliferate just beyond teaching and learning. And that's what's wonderful about when you can provide these tools out to your faculty, and then they just run with it. And then I think that third area there, and this is the recent one, is the Go Blue app. So the Go Blue app is a mobile app that is to address, the device that our students are using to interact with the most, to be able to touch into the My Maisie, the UMGPT, to be a concierge. I heard a presentation just before ours from DePaul, and they used a wonderful term for it, the wine expert, sommelier. My French, I just butchered it. Sommelier, yes, thank you. I love their analogy. We've used the analogy of a concierge, which has been a way to, you've had to help our students understand that it is designed to answer questions both about their specific courses and things like that, but also things about the university. And so it does very well as we, train, kind of fine-tune the corpus that it draws from. But then, if you try to ask it questions that might be more of a general nature, those are best served with other tools. So that's kind of the, right now, hopefully that gives you some specifics of what we're doing. And again, 1,000 flowers blooming, something right now has just popped up at the university while we've been talking that will continue to grow. So when we talk about the partnership, and Ryan will talk about what Instructure is doing on their back end, we talk about the open platform nature of Instructure. So it's one thing for a partner to say, for a provider to say, oh yeah, we'd love to partner on things, but when it gets down to the technical implementation with it, you can't do it. Or it becomes, maybe they're a professional services, or we'll have to partner and we'll have to develop that out. Instructure's had a long-standing philosophy of openness and providing a really robust set of APIs, so you can write your systems and interact with that. And then you also have the adherence to standards that they have. They have the APIs. They also participate in the LTI standard, the Learning Tools Interoperability Standard, and they guide that through their participation in One EdTech. So open platform, long-standing approach to that, which makes it easy to be able to experiment and partner in that way. And then the engagement is that we are constantly participating in forums with Instructure. We have the Customer Success Manager program through Instructure. So we're meeting twice monthly with that individual. We get a chance to participate in reveals of what's on the roadmap. Here's some ideas that we have. We saw one not too long ago that's very fascinating that when we saw it, we said, oh wow, we've got a doctoral student who's taking that approach of what you're doing right now inside of our My Maisie, but what you're doing, I think, will will remove some of the friction to doing that. Right now, we're still, you still see a lot of the copy paste, kind of paste in the prompt, get the results, paste it over here. When it's become seamless, when it's just built in, and we aren't thinking about it, we're going to laugh when we talk about prompt engineering, right? When we talk about it, we're going to say, remember, it'll be equivalent to when we talked about when you did HTML and you opened up a text editor and you hand coded it. Like this, nobody does that anymore, right?
I actually say a lot. The way we talk about AI right now is the way we talked about HTML5, right? It was innovative. It was changing the way websites interacted with us. AI is going to go the same way. We don't talk about HTML5 or whatever language or web pages are being developed in. It just disappears in the background. AI will disappear in the background, and we'll see much more of that seamless interaction.
So, Brian, do you want to talk about more of the work that's on the Instructure
Yeah, I mean, I think
side?
one of the things we talked about is it's really easy when you have a hammer that everything looks like a nail, and so we want to make sure we were actually solving real human-driven problems. At the same time, we're a software as a service solution, and so as we roll out features, we have to look at what the vast majority of our customers are going to use. And so we've rolled out a number of features, I think 5 different features, and the goal really has been to make sure that those features are beneficial to the vast majority. These AI-based features, so search, translation, discussion summaries, things like that, intelligent insights, different tools that we know the vast majority of our schools will benefit from. But then, like Dan said, our goal from the beginning was making sure that we had an open architecture that benefited from all of our partners. Our partner ecosystem really is our superpower. And so deepening those LTI integrations, that plumbing within Canvas that allows you to plug in a third-party tool and have that have deep interactions within the product, really has been core. And so, we didn't want to be first. We saw some folks running SUing out to have the first features out there. We want to be very deliberate with our approach, and so we've continued to do that. And we've really seen that benefit. I don't know if I don't love that slide. How'd that get in there? Honestly, one of the things we talk about too is AI literacy and bringing schools along. We all sitting in this room are really at the forefront of these conversations, so we need to make sure that we are meeting schools where they are. One of the reasons that openness approach, which honestly I joined Instructure 7 years ago, and that was one of the things I loved, this idea that we'll roll out our own tools, but then we're also going to actually integrate with tools that, we may have Canvas Studio, but you can plug in Panopto or Kaltura. What does your school want to build? And we're going to facilitate that and not be territorial about that. And that's something that we've preserved, and it's been very beneficial as we've moved into this model. And so meeting schools that have high innovation and want to build things themselves, giving them the resources and the infrastructure to do that, but then also making sure that schools that are more hesitant or lack the resources can come along as well. And I always talk about my kids. I have a daughter that's a sophomore at the University of Utah. I have a son that's in 8th grade. They both use Canvas, and they constantly give me feedback on the product and what I can do better. But those are very different resource institutions. So how do we make sure that we support all of them? I think recently you've seen a number of, again, this is what I talked about, the different approaches. And we've got schools using every one of these models, schools that are just using our AA features, schools that have plugged in third parties like Praxis that is here somewhere is a good partner, and then schools that have stood up their own large language models. It's funny, University of Central Florida built out a search tool early on, scheduled some time, and they were like, we just built this AI-powered search engine. We're like, that's awesome. We built that too, right? So, whether they want to run ours or run theirs, that's really important. One of the things that we also did was standardize around AWS and the Bedrock models. And so for our internal features, we're largely using AWS because Canvas was born on AWS. We are largely using the models within Bedrock, and that allows us to start looking at cost, but then also looking at size and scale. Dan referred a little bit to the idea that some of these models can start to shrink and be more cost efficient, more energy efficient. The other aspect that we've done too, because we are agnostic, while our internal features are largely being built off of the AWS tools, we signed a deal last week that was announced with Anthropic, and they've got a really great model for education that is what they call learning mode, and it's actually using Socratic questioning. So instead of if a student asks for an answer, instead of giving them the answer, it actually guides them through questions to get to that answer, as opposed to just giving it to them. It helps them find that answer. And so much more of a Socratic approach, much more an academic approach than you find in a lot of the other models. But we've also signed deals with Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, and Gemini, and all of those tools. And so what we're looking at now for the future really is more of that agent model, right? And that openness approach now helps us get ready for the next step, where as opposed to this proliferation of LMS or large language models powering different features for a lot of the different solutions, in the future we'll have groups like AWS and Salesforce and Microsoft providing agents that allow really functions across an enterprise, right? They can go off on an educator's behalf or a developer's behalf and accomplish tasks across a lot of different systems. And so we're uniquely positioned now because of that approach of openness to be able to support that future model. And so that's really where we're headed. Time-wise, I don't know where we are with time-wise. I don't think what's that? Couple minutes. So honestly, the approach for us is openness and being agnostic. You'll see more. Sharon Vijayasingham, who's our Chief Product Officer, has a session tomorrow. He's actually going to cover more of this approach, but then also some of our features that we've rolled out as well, and some of the near-term features that are on the roadmap. More time than we had today to get into that. I don't know if beyond, I guess, what's next for University of Michigan from here?
Well, I'll add this, and if you want to click the next slide, that'll give you a chance to be able to grab the QR codes there. I'll just put a plug in, and I didn't share this with Ryan, but I'll put it on as my wish list. What I would really like to see is, we've talked about adaptive learning and personalized learning, and what I would like to see is for us to be able to develop out the learning objectives, the learning outcomes, the mastery-based learning, and that just addresses so many different things, right? Isn't it something that we say that you either get one shot, pass or fail at things, and if you had an approach where you could take this from different angles, right? I think people don't want you to have these high stakes. It's all based on this right here, or these 3 or 4 assessments, and I either get it or I don't, and that leads to a whole lot of unfortunate outcomes, right? But if we can get to learning-based mastery, and we can get to, this is why you're learning this is what we want you to come out of from this learning. Don't assume that students just understand that. And it's always kept in the forefront. And then here's the path for that. And I would just love to be able to see AI really lift the barrier for us for doing that.
And you mentioned the fact that there's so many use cases for this, and I think I had a conversation with an educator last week, and he said, "I'm a really good writer. I don't want to use OpenAI, or use AI." And I said, "Then don't use it to write. Use it to summarize your emails. Use it for research. Use it for a myriad of other tasks that take up your time that you don't want to do, and then focus on writing, which you do want to do, right?" But it's that uncovering these different use cases that I think is so interesting. And we, as a software vendor, are not going to come up with every use case. We can think of only so many. It's when you actually start using these tools on campus with educators, with students, that they figure out ways to use it that you didn't anticipate, like you mentioned. And that's what really helps us drive the future and figure out how to do this. But personalized learning is really the untapped potential of AI, and really creating that connection between teachers and students in the way they want to learn, and making sure every student is successful and every student is supported in the way that they learn best, I think is really what we can look forward to in the future.
All right, I think we're at time. Hopefully we got down to brass tacks, and Kate, I hope we met our
I think you guys
goal
did a
there.
heck of a job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.